Uh, I'm going to take a little bit of a moment to unpack the issue and really get to the bottom of what I wanted to talk about today. Um, and then I'll be posing some different responses to that kind of broader issue, or not issue, but addressing teacher quality. So, over the last few weeks, we've investigated various phenomena occurring in Australian mathematics education. As we went on throughout the weeks, I reflected on some commonalities amongst these. And I saw them kind of all funneling down and being underpinned by the same motive and aim, which was to improve student learning and student outcomes. So then looking at what influences those outcomes. Some seminal research has obviously been done by Hattie. He first investigated the different factors that contribute to variations in student achievement, finding that what students bring to school accounts for 50% of that variation. These include things like their prior knowledge, their background, their attitudes, motivation, even physical and cognitive attributes. Their home, peers, school factors, leadership, they account for about 5 to 10% each. But the other big finding there was that attributes of the teachers in teaching account for about 30% of variation in student achievement. This has been agreed upon throughout the literature that teachers have the biggest in-school factor on student achievement. So obviously one would want to try to promote all of those factors that we can control. Hattie's since and continually elaborating on his research and looking at effect sizes of all sorts of different factors of student learning. He's up to over 250 now, and they get constantly revised. I'm still not quite at my issue yet, so keep holding on with me. So what does high quality teaching in mathematics look like? Again, mountains and mountains of research exist into what this is. Basically kind of boiling down to what do these effective teachers know and understand, what do they do, and what do they value and believe? One of the big areas of research is around Ball's framework for mathematical knowledge for teaching. It contains 6 domains, but they are broadly looking at how children learn mathematics, teachers needing to know the typical pathways that they take, and experiences that students need to progress along those pathways. In terms of what the practice is and what teachers do, they again identify student needs, so linking back with their knowledge to do those things. They set them challenging and high and reasonable goals. They differentiate and challenge. They balance proficiencies, so giving them experience, a balanced diet of understanding, fluency, things like that. They use student-centered instruction as opposed to teacher-directed. They promote discourse in their classrooms, and they maintain and establish a supportive environment. Beliefs and values around what it means to be an effective teacher, a teacher of mathematics, is really essential. It sort of underpins all of what a teacher does and what they are capable of knowing. They need to value and know, or they believe that all students are capable of learning and growth. They focus on their strengths and not their deficits. They highlight and emphasize connections within mathematics and see it as an interconnected network of ideas and concepts. They value mistakes and communicate that with their students. They are lifelong learners. They value a culture of a collaboration and see their colleagues as a means for reciprocal support. And they have a sense of self-efficacy. So they themselves are capable of performing the necessary teaching activities and that those actions will have an impact on student learning. Looking at all of this, we can see that to be an effective teacher or a high quality teacher, there are a lot of demands that teachers need to have. And it would take a very high functioning individual to be able to do all of these things. This is really still focusing only on high quality teaching in mathematics. This doesn't bring into the account as well the demands that society places on teachers around being passionate and compassionate and thoughtful, promoting tolerance and promoting social cohesion, ensuring that students feel valued, and all of that other well-being side of it that we all do as well. So coming back to kind of all of that the phenomena that we see and the qualities of high quality teaching in mathematics, if the first goal for education in Australia is to promote excellence and equity, then ensuring that all students have access to high quality teachers is essential in meeting this goal. So how prevalent are high quality teachers in our Australian mathematics classroom? So this is what I really wanted to boil the issue down to, is if we have all of these things happening in the system and we need these, if all of these, the individuals in our system to have all of these qualities, then what's that current state? So there's all sorts of different various measures of teacher quality. Usually the most common that we see are the easiest ones to measure, things like student performance, teacher qualifications and experience. Teacher standards have been introduced as well to help round out this and capture the aspects of teaching that those quantitative measures don't really capture. And then as well, some various observations of classroom practices. I actually just, after I had written this, I just stumbled across another international measure of teacher quality that I didn't get a chance to include, but it's based on observations as well. So what does the literature say? How are we going? There's the obvious evidence from PISA and TIMSS on our declining or stagnating performance. I'm not going to go into that because we've seen it all already. As I was reviewing the research studies and the literature that was out there, I didn't really come across much. I was trying to look and limit myself to studies based in Australia and within service teachers of primary and secondary schooling. From what I did come across, a few mentioned the differences between teachers' espoused beliefs or knowledge, what they say they know and they value, versus what's demonstrated in their practice, and the mismatch between those. Challenges to teachers being able to enact some of those practices of high quality teaching come from the curriculum and reporting barriers, lockstep movement based on age, and having to report a score as well, as opposed to progress. This was a really interesting review, and it was released this year, so it's highly relevant. In reviewing a lot of it, studies from Australasian literature, they found even more challenges around those strong deficit perceptions of students, teachers' reluctance in adopting some of those high effective pedagogies, tendencies to group based by ability even within classes, negative student attitudes, and unsupportive classroom environments. I've also got some evidence from my own experience around how the qualities of teachers and the practices that they're showing. I have a measure of teacher practice and a measure of teacher knowledge. This is from a report that we conducted at my school back in 2016. We conducted a series of learning walks across prep to year 9 classrooms, and we scored the teachers' practices against a rubric. It's loosely based off of Charlotte Danielson's framework, but it basically, the different levels, level 1 would be teachers who had practices that were very teacher-directed, didactic models, and level 4 would be really student-centered and dialogic models. We kind of established that level 3 would be the cutoff kind of between those, and we're wanting teachers to be above that red line. And as you can see, that quite a lot of the teachers fell below that and used predominantly teacher-centered practices. The lessons we saw were well evidenced that they were well planned, but they quite often didn't relate to the learning intention or were very task or still skill focused. Most of the discussions happened between teachers and a single student, usually just with the students volunteering a response. There was very little writing that was involved, and very little differentiation in formative assessment. Most of the lessons were the same, all the students working on the same task. There was also differences in primary and secondary teachers, but I wasn't able to include that information here. And then earlier this year, I had asked teachers I supplied them with some samples of student work. They were asked to rank the samples in order of level of sophistication and describe the understandings shown in each of those samples. We can see here that most of the teachers identified and described the strategies or procedures students used. Many of them also focused on what the student could not do. Their responses suggest that while that teachers can identify different strategies, they can also identify that those occur in a hierarchy. They really struggled to relate what that strategy or procedure indicated about a student's deeper conceptual understanding for that concept. So what can we do about it? A lot of the literature talks about addressing teacher quality at all stages of the profession. So looking at initial teacher education, being able to attract the right people to the job, the quality of the education they receive, and then also once they start entering the workforce, effective induction into the schools that they end up working at. They also talked about retaining teachers, looking at rewarding, recognizing, and valuing the teachers that we have and the good practices that exist already. And the main focus is development. So once we have teachers in the profession, what can we do for continuous and ongoing support of them improving their knowledge, skills, and beliefs? So really briefly, I also came across lots of different ideas around characteristics of professional development. Some of these characteristics are just around professional development in general, and some of them are more specific to mathematics. Again, numerous frameworks. There's so much out there in the literature on what makes for good professional development. In my experience, if you heard at the start, I'm at the end of my MEd journey, and kind of the biggest takeaway that I've kind of realized is all of the practices that we say work best for children's education is the same for what we do with teachers. So if we're talking about looking at using formative assessment to teach to students' needs, then leaders should be looking at doing the same, using some sort of assessment to understand where their teachers are starting and where they're going. The hallmarks of effective professional development, they said, were anchored in evidence of student learning. So, and which meant that they would be really grounded in using student work to get the teachers to look through and build their understanding and knowledge that way. They integrate theory and practice, so that student work would be part of the practice part of it. They capitalize on using external expertise, but there's a bit of a caveat there. It would need to be done in a meaningful and ongoing way that has multiple opportunities. So one-off sessions are really ineffective. Teachers need ongoing support if you actually are if they're going to be able to implement some of those things that you're talking about. Getting a little bit more specific with mathematics is the sessions are grounded in mathematics, with teachers experiencing the mathematics as learners as well. So doing the math themselves and then thinking at it from a teaching perspective and what their students would likely do. It's sustained through collaboration and setting up communal networks and communities to help support each other. Recognizes teachers' existing knowledge and beliefs. That's what I had mentioned before around us finding out where teachers are starting with as well. And it addresses any potential barriers or opportunities that teachers would come across in implementing whatever the program is discussing. And that would be it. So I've got lots of references, but I can upload the presentation to the LMS afterwards as well.